I bet you guys have spun a bloodline in Shadow Life once and went, what is this bloodline? Well, this video is going to be all about that. These are going to be the top 10 most forgotten or the best forgotten bloodlines in Shadow Life. Now, you can take the ranking however you want. I just want to do a culmination of all the forgotten bloodlines. I did rank them based on how forgotten they were and how good they were. It was kind of a combination of that, so feel free to, take it as you please. So if you guys enjoyed this video, remember to like, squirrel. Let's get right to the video. All right, so coming in 10th place is actually going to be Scorch. Now, you guys may be thinking, Scorch, that's not really that forgotten. Well, I honestly think it's a lot more forgotten than it is. Like I said, this is a list of combination of how good something is with how forgotten it is. So yeah, all I'm gonna say is Scorch is I'm gonna I hate saying this because I don't want to see people using this, but Scorch is underrated, like severely underrated. The second ability is a 4-second cooldown timer that does like 30,000 damage with the burn. So on a 4-second timer, it's auto tracking and it does 30,000 damage. The third ability is a 62,000 damage burst that's instant if you're right next to them. So like Scorch, it's really good, and I honestly don't see it as much as I probably should. And that pains me to say because Scorch is one of the most annoying bloodlines in this game to fight because it's really good and it's really easy to fit into a kit. So yeah, the coming in 9th place is going to be Bankai Inferno. Now, while this may not be the most forgotten bloodline in the entire game, it definitely is a lot better than people give it credit for. I mean, it has an instantaneous 30k damage. That was actually nerfed, by the way. It used to do like 50,000, but I do think Bankai Inferno is a lot better than people give it credit for, me myself included. It's just that people don't really use this that much, like at all. I think I don't see Bankai Inferno at all, so it's really hard to judge just how good it is just because nobody uses it. And so I think just because of that, it's perfect for being on the forgotten bloodline list because people don't really use it. People have forgotten about it. People don't use it in their kits even though they may have it. So I think it's just perfect for this video, honestly. All right, so coming in 8th place is going to be Jeremaki. It's going to be in here because nobody uses my bloodline. Why does everyone hate me? All right, so jokes aside, Jeremaki, it obviously isn't the best. I mean, it has a lot of flaws, but by golly heck, this bloodline is fun. I just don't want to cuss. But when it comes to Jeremaki, they actually did buff the third ability. The third ability is still bad, but it is a lot better than it was before. So, there's only so much you can ask for when it comes to rogue games. But they actually did buff the bloodline, so kudos to them. They did buff Jeremaki, but it still has a lot of flaws. Like, for example, the hair move actually glitches them sometimes and flings them across the entire map, which obviously isn't that fun. The hair move has slightly too much end lag to actually be useful in combos because they could just get out of it instantly. Third ability is still too much startup time, but there's not really much else you can do about it because they actually did make it almost instantaneous. It's just the actual sequence of it happening is so slow that it's just really not that great. The stun is good though. I like the stun, but when it comes to Jeremaki, it is a very forgotten bloodline in this game. I have never seen anyone use Jeremaki besides me, and I use it because it's my bloodline. You know what I mean? I'm very appreciative of the bloodline, but I have to acknowledge how bad it is. But at the same time, it is very forgotten, which is why it's going to be in this video. I honestly think the only issue now, the only thing I can even gripe about, complain about, whatever, you can say it however you want, the M1s knock them back so far. Like, look, you guys see how far this dude gets knocked back for the M1s? I do think the knockback should just be removed. In all honesty, there's M1s that do more damage to Jeremaki now, so just remove the knockback entirely, and the bloodline will be fine after that. But it still is, it's a lot better than like people give it credit for. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, the stun is really good. The hair move, if they don't know they can get out of it, is really good. If they don't know they can get out of the hair move, it is good. I'll be honest. And then the weapon spec is just Naramaki third, but on a weapon spec, so that is still really good because you guys know how good Naramaki third is. So Jeremaki, while it does have a lot of flaws, it still is a decent bloodline. It is very forgotten. If you made it this far in the video and haven't hit that like button yet, feel free to do it now. If you already hit that like button, you are cool. The coming in 7th place is actually be Doku Tengoku. Now, Doku Tengoku, this is actually the skin version Doku Scorpion. I know that I get people all the time in the comments. You'd be surprised how many people there are. There's a lot of people that don't know what skins are, but anyways, in 7th place, it's gonna be Doku Tengoku, simply because Doku Tengoku, even though it isn't the best bloodline in the game, I definitely don't see it that much anymore at all. Now, the reason why it's gonna be 7th because it actually is not really that good, so that's why it's going to be low on the list. But it definitely is a very forgotten bloodline. I think the only people that remember this remember just how bad it is, and I think that's a sad thing because Dokutogoku is such a cool visual bloodline. I mean, the third ability is a counter. If the counter doesn't work half the time, that's the main issue behind it. But if they were to make the counter work and all that stuff, Dokutogoku would be such a good bloodline and very fun. I think it is one of the most like fun bloodlines in the game, just by a visual standpoint, and it actually is a shame because it is very cool as well. Now coming in 6th place, it could be Riser Akuma. Now, as soon as the first ability of Riser Akuma got nerfed, people stopped using this, but the first ability is still good. The first ability is still actually an auto dodge, as you guys are probably aware if you guys actually use Riser Akuma. Also, it still has knockback on the M1s. Rail games, you're supposed to remove the knockbacks from the M1s, but you know, Riser Akuma itself is a really good forgotten bloodline, because whenever someone uses this first move, it is an absolute menace, like a literal menace. Like, it is very difficult to fight someone using this first move because it still has iframes attached to it. It has like 1 or 2 seconds of iframes, combined with the fact that it actually has a stun that can set up your combos. So yeah, Riser Akuma is a lot better than, you know, even though it was nerfed, you know, it may actually be better now that it's on the not on the autological cooldown, but even though it was nerfed, it still is a really good bloodline. So that's why I think it should be on this list, because people don't really use it as much as they should. So coming in 5th place, it could be Wanzayame. I'm not going to talk about this that much because it actually did get buffed recently, but Wanzayame is definitely a very forgotten bloodline for how good it is. Look at the Z-spec. Look how wide they made it. And then the M1s actually do drain a ton of chi. And by a ton of chi, I'm not like exaggerating. It drains a lot of chi. But other than that, Wanzayame really has nothing else going for it. I mean, they did buff it. It is better than it used to be, so there is that. I mean, the third ability, boom, look at this. But okay, jokes aside, you know, airplanes aside, Wanzayame, the Z-spec is really good, and that kind of what carries the bloodline, and that's why it's going to be on this list. Now coming to 4th place is going to be Ryan Akuma. Now, Ryan Akuma is going to be coming to 4th simply because Ryan Akuma, as soon as it got nerfed, it kind of just, people stopped using it. Ryan Akuma is still really good. You can still move stack with the third ability. It still does tons of damage. It still has that mode drain, iframe, C-spec. It still has everything that Ryan Akuma had before, but they just reduced the iframes of the third ability. It also has a really good counter, by the way. So if you guys don't have a counter, you guys can just throw Ryan Akuma into it. But I like, Ryan Akuma is one of those bloodlines that I personally really like. I think it's a really fun bloodline. I used to actually be a Ryan Akuma hater, as the old fans of my channel know. I used to hate Ryan Akuma like there was no tomorrow. I used to think it was absolute garbage, and it was a lot better than I thought, and it ended up getting nerfed, as it probably should have, because it was really, you know, busted, and people just kind of stopped using it. But it didn't make it not good. It still is a really good bloodline. I still use it a lot of the time, and yeah, it's not a bloodline to sleep on. Coming in 3rd place is going to be Nectar. Now, Nectar's going to be coming in 3rd because Nectar was actually buffed, and people still are not using this. What are you doing, Shindo Lifeians? Why are you still not using Nectar? What else do you want? It has everything that you would ever need from a bloodline. I mean, it has a long-range stun move that actually does a ton of damage. It has poison M1s. It has a weapon spec that is a stun move. It has a bee ride. You could ride a flipping bee and it ragdolls them, and you can extend M1 combos with it. The first ability does butt tons of damage to people. Like, what else do you want, Shindo Lifeians? But all right, so jokes aside, Nectar is really good. That's why it's going to be a 3rd on this list, even though, you know, people may actually know it because Rogue Games did buff it recently, so they may be like, oh yeah, Nectar's a thing. A lot of people still don't know what this bloodline is. A lot of people still don't know how good it is, so I think I just needed to involve it on this list just because it is a lot better than, you know, everyone thinks it is. Now coming in 2nd place is going to be Rune Concho. Now this may be surprising to some people because it actually is still new, but the reason why I'm going to put it in 2nd is because, not because the players have necessarily forgot about it, but because it hasn't been buffed and there's still issues. The second ability still has a gap in it, so they could just escape right there. That's the gap, by the way. The first ability is still super unreliable. The first ability is fine, by the way. It's a really cool ability, but it is unreliable. The M1s are cool. I mean, the weapon spec is super cool. I think another fault of this is that it doesn't drain enough chi. I think that a full revolution of your ability should drain the entire chi bar, because Concho does drain a lot of chi too. So I think it is having an identity crisis right now with what it is. It still should drain more chi, but that doesn't mean the bloodline isn't good. I mean, the counter also needs fixed. I think if they fix the counter, the bloodline would be fine being, you know, the way it is. The moves wouldn't be that good, but the counter not being hitting, like, for some reason the counter sometimes, even if you get hit, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work sometimes. I don't know why. You know, sometimes it just literally doesn't work. And I know this is a thing because the people that also use Rune Concho can attest for this. It just doesn't work sometimes. I have no explanation. It just doesn't work sometimes. That's the only thing I can explain. But when it does work, it is really good, and I do think it is is somewhat forgotten. So that's what's going to be in second place. Now, honorable 1 is going to be Shadow. I'm not going to rant on about this that much, but Shadow is just, it's a really good stun bloodline. There's not really much else to say about it. It has a super long play select stun, has a stun that actually drags into you, and it's actually really good for PvE content. The mode actually does tons of damage to bosses. There's not really much else to say other than that. It's just, it's a really forgotten bloodline that I actually never see. I've genuinely never seen anyone ever use Shadow besides me. Now, Honorable 2 is going to be Pika-Senko. I'm not going to talk about this that much like the other honorable mention, but Pika-Senko is definitely a very forgotten bloodline for how good it is. I mean, the mode is undeniably good. It allows you to avoid stuff while doing a lot of damage. Obviously, the first ability is like a better Odin Saburu's second ability. You do have a good traveling move. They actually did nerf it, but it does teleport you to them now, so you can combo extend with it. Quite good, but the third ability is kind of bad. There's not really much else to say other than that. Pika-Senko, it is what it is. It's very forgotten. It actually is good. By the way, guys, what is the forgotten bloodline you guys actually like using? Because I know at least someone has a guilty favorite most of the time, or some people just like using broken bloodlines. If that's you, then I guess that's fine. If you're tell me in the comments below, we'll be checking them out. Now, coming to first place is going to be Satori Rengoku. Now, while this may not be the most forgotten bloodline in the game, it is the most forgotten in my heart, and I think that is the one that matters. So when it actually comes to Satori Ren, this was my #1 most hated bloodline for a very long time. Not because it was necessarily bad. I mean, not because it was necessarily annoying or anything like that, because it was just bad. It was terrible. I mean, like, people like took this bloodline if it was like God himself approached Shindo Life and went, I'm gonna join that, you know what I mean? Like, but when it comes to Satori Ren, I do feel like Satori Ren is a lot better than it used to be. I mean, obviously counters are meta right now. The clone ability is really good. The M1s are still, you know, god awful. They didn't reduce the knockback or anything like that, but the first ability is it's just so good now. It does like 120,000 damage modeless to someone. If you make an entire kit revolving around Satori Ren's stun, you will be able to do a lot of burst damage to someone simply because Satori Ren's stun does so much damage. Like, you could stack so many moves with it. So I just wanted to put it in first place just because the first ability does so much damage now. I was a hater for it for so long. I do think that it isn't used as much as it probably should be. And yeah, consider this a gift to the Satori Ren lovers, because I may be a Satori Ren lover now. Who knows? You know, maybe things have changed. Anyways, guys, it's actually going to be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you next one, guys. Bye-bye.